Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
Entrusted by the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, the Minister of Sports, Walid Saadi, has officially given the kickoff for the first edition of the African School Games, which will last until August 5 in eastern Algeria. The Director of Trade, Facilitation and Investment Promotion at the African Export-Import Bank, Afreximbank, has stressed that Algeria, the third largest economy in Africa, represents a strategic lever for accelerating trade and economic integration in the continent. And as the first lorries laden with aid today crossed the border separating Egypt and the Gaza Strip as part of a lull in the fighting, the Israeli army pursued their pounding of the enclave, killing at least 13 Palestinians, including 2 children. Those were the headlines, and with the news in detail from Radio Algeria International. First in our news, instructed by the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, the Minister of Foreign Trade and Export Promotion, Kamel Rizig, is taking part in the second United Nations Food Systems Summit, UNFSS+4, scheduled to take place until 29 of July in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Algeria's participation is part of its commitment under the leadership of the President of the Republic to support international efforts to build sustainable, equitable, and resilient food systems in view of the growing challenges related to food security, climate change, and global economic changes. The chargé d'affaires of the French embassy in Algeria has been summoned again to the headquarters of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs with regard to the continued obstructions encountered by the Algerian embassy in Paris relating to the delivery and collection of diplomatic bags in violation of the French government's international obligations. According to a press release from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the restrictions, which were initially limited to the Algerian embassy in France, have now been extended to Algerian consular posts, despite the Quai d'Orsay's commitment to reconsider the measure. The same source added that, in strict accordance with the principle of reciprocity, the Director of Diplomatic Immunities and Privileges of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has recovered all privileged access permits to Algerian ports and airports granted to the French embassy in Algeria. Entrusted by the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, the Minister of Sports, Walid Saadi, has officially given the kickoff for the first African School Games, which will last until August 5 in the eastern provinces of Annaba, Constantine, Sétif, and Skikda. Mariam Barshi has more details in this report.
During his speech at the opening ceremony of this continental sporting event organized under the high patronage of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, at the 19 May 1956 Stadium in Annaba in the presence of the Ministers of Youth, Mustafa Hidawi, and of National Education, Mohamed Saghir Sadawi, members of the National Olympic Committees, and Algerian and foreign athletes, Mr. Saadi emphasized that the first edition of these games hosted by Algeria confirms the deep conviction that the development of the persons begins in school, which constitutes an incubator of talent and a reservoir of sporting energy. The Minister of Sports indicated that thanks to the political will of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, the numerous sports facilities built have made Algeria a sports destination by excellence, illustrating the country's capacity to organize major sports competitions, such as the first African School Games.
With great pride, Algeria hosts this founding edition in implementation of its deep commitment towards a unified, fraternal African continent that believes that its future is in its hands, from the school and from the sports arena as well. This commitment has risen from the level of imagination to the level of action, thanks to the direct sponsorship of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, the first supporter of sports and the most prominent supporter of its consolidation in society, starting from the school as the starting point.
The president of the Association of National Olympic Committees of Africa, Mustafa Barra, for his part emphasized that this continental competition is a step towards the recognition of African leadership and constitutes the ideal venue to meet the challenges of raising the standard of school sports in Africa. Barraf also praised the work accomplished by Algerian government officials and its governors in Annaba, Constantine, Stif and Skikda, who provided the necessary resources to make this African celebration a success. The president of the National Organizing Committee of the First African School Games, Ammar Brahmiya, said that the Games, the first of their kind, represent a platform for the noble values that unite the peoples of Africa and lay a new foundation for its unity.
We are celebrating the kickoff of the first edition of the African School Games in the beautiful city of Annaba. I can't but express my pride and honor in seeing this African dream come true, that the children of our continent gather around sports and around school. We lay the first building block in a long and ambitious project for a stronger Africa. I extend the most powerful expressions of thanks and gratitude to the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, for his high patronage and great support, so that every African child feels that they are home here in Algeria.
It's worth recalling that 1,700 athletes from 47 countries are competing in several individual and team sports disciplines.
And the Director of Trade Facilitation and Investment Promotion at the African Export-Import Bank, Afreximbank, Mr. Gainmore Zanamwini, has stressed that Algeria, the third largest economy in Africa, represents a strategic lever for accelerating trade and economic integration in the continent, particularly as part of the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA. Mariam Bashir has more again.
In a statement to the Algerian news agency APS, Mr. Zanamwe praised Algeria's political commitment to African causes and its historic role in supporting liberation movements, emphasizing that its economic strength gave it a clear advantage to actively contribute to the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, to which 49 countries have already adhered. He noted that Algeria has competitive potential in promising sectors such as agriculture, mining, innovation and startups, and that it can establish lasting economic partnerships with countries across the continent thanks to its diversified industrial base. According to Mr. Zanamwe, the fourth edition of the Intra-African Trade Fair, scheduled for September the 4th to the 10th in Algiers, will, according to him, be a major step in promoting the business climate and investment opportunities offered by the national economy to the African and international business communities. For the first time since its inception, this edition will lay significant emphasis on innovation and startups in recognition of Algeria's growing contribution to the knowledge economy.
Shifting now to the Middle East, where as the first lorries laden with aid today crossed the border separating Egypt and the Gaza Strip, as part of a lull in the fighting, the Israeli army pursued its pounding of the enclave, killing at least 13 Palestinians, including 2 children. According to the news agency Wafa, several other people were wounded by the Israeli forces while queuing to receive aid near the southern towns of Rafah and Khan Yunis. This came as the first lorries laden with aid today crossed the Rafah terminal to provide aid to the distressed Palestinian population hours after the first humanitarian aid was dropped on Gaza. The delivery of aid has been made possible following several weeks of international pressure to allow the entry of aid and vital supplies into the territory devastated by over 21 months of war. In this connection, the head of the UN Humanitarian Operations, Tom Fletcher, hailed the humanitarian pause that allowed for reopening the humanitarian corridors, stating that the UN was trying to reach as much possible as it can. However, the humanitarian pause agreed on by the Israeli occupying authorities seems insufficient, as famine has reached, according to the UN, unprecedented disastrous levels in the besieged Gaza Strip. In this respect, the lawyer and chairman of the International Commission to Support Palestinian Rights, Salah Abd al-Ati, called into question the Israeli decision. Let's listen to him.
نحن لا نثق بالاحتلال الإسرائيلي وخاصة أن
We don't trust the Israeli occupying authorities, and we don't bet on their humanity, and what they did depicts brutal Nazi occupation which is disrespectful of the international law and all human principles and ignores the rulings issued by the International Court of Justice. The reason why it is necessary to continue to put pressure to allow for the entry of humanitarian aid through the UN agencies and to console the mechanisms for aid run by the US and by the Israeli authorities, which led to the killing outside its centers of 1,120 people, whereas 7,600 others were wounded on account of practices that turned these sites into death traps.
للمدنيين الفلسطينيين المجوعين.
Evoking the major role played by the International Criminal Court, ICC, he has this to say.
هناك دور يعول عليه للمحكمة الجنائية الدولية.
The International Criminal Court's main role is to investigate the war crimes, the crimes against humanity, the genocide and acts of aggression, and that was happened when the State of Palestine joined the Rome Charter and when the settlement file was submitted, and also the steps taken before the court, even though the court is acting slowly. It has issued warrants of arrests against Netanyahu and Gallant that were welcome, but this is not sufficient. It is necessary to take steps so that more arrest warrants be issued against the Israeli occupying officials, forces and partners, including international companies and the US, which have contributed to genocide. The court is subjected to pressure, including the Attorney General. We hope that the parties to the Rome Charter would face up to such a pressure to allow the court to play its role efficiently regarding the Palestinian issue.
That was the lawyer and chairman of the International Commission to Support Palestinian Rights, Salah Abd al-Hati. And in Nigeria, Médecins Sans Frontières has warned that more than 600 children have died of malnutrition in the last 6 months in northern Nigeria, which is facing an alarming malnutrition crisis. Between January and June 2025, MSF teams treated nearly 70,000 children suffering from malnutrition in Katsina State, of whom around 10,000 had to be hospitalized. And Cambodia has announced that a total of 536 schools in border provinces had been closed due to ongoing clashes between Cambodian and Thai soldiers. The closure affected 130,000 students and teachers. Gunfire broke out on Thursday morning around two ancient temples dating back to the Angkor period in the Thai province of Surin and the Cambodian province of Odar Meanchey. The two armies accused each other of firing first. Thailand also accused Cambodia of using a drone at the disputed sites. And with this, we come to the end of this news bulletin for today. Time now for weekly programs, starting with my colleague Hana Dalil with a program on Annaba and another program on the same city of Annaba by my colleague Jamal Silmani. As for me, I'll meet you again tomorrow for a fresh edition of our news bulletin. Until then, stay tuned to Radio Algeria International and bye-bye for now.